I mean, I think we've already had quite a few examples of some very interesting technologies and means of sort of preventing, detecting, and countering disinformation. I'm just going to start with a really short anecdote, which maybe people know about already, but I discovered recently. So obviously, the problem of disinformation is not new. And actually, even in Roman times, there were some form of fake news. And specifically, there was a campaign by Octavian to discredit basically Anthony and Cleopatra. But the big difference between this time and now is that at the time, the medium of communication used to spread this disinformation campaign was coins, which takes a little bit of time to disseminate. Whilst now we have digital media, which can reach many people extremely fast. And furthermore, information comes in many different formats. And there's technologies to detect, prevent, and counter disinformation need to be as fast, wide-reaching, and also multimodal as the information disseminated itself. So basically, for instance, we have sort of prevention technologies that can, for instance, we have, that can be based on methods to automate watermarking. I think watermarking was mentioned before, but you can have different forms. So you can have sort of a priori watermarking, where content generated by AI models is automatically assigned a sort of tamper-proof unique identifier. There also is research on detecting image geolocalization based on contextual inaccuracy detection. So analyzing discrepancies between objects in a background and the main images featured, or the main text content, so the main information in the text, and sort of background information that can be linked to, let's say, a different country than what is mentioned in the main text. As mentioned by Sophia, I think emotion detection analysis will also be very important, um, specifically to determine if the tampering that is detected by other technologies is actually done with malicious intent, and whether it is used or understood as real, because otherwise we basically can no longer have, let's say, irony or satire, which would be a very big problem as well. And I think Ritza and also in the talk from Harlequin, we had a lot of discussion about data sets, the importance of data sets, especially when we're developing technologies that are based on AI and where we know that diversity is very important, that the data sets, we need to make sure that they are not biased, for example. So a lot of attention is to be paid in collating data sets that can be shared, and that can enable training of models in better models, basically. We also, I also want to add that basically detection, prevention, and countering technologies are actually often interlinked rather than being separate. And so a method for detecting tampering, let's say in an image, can be subsequently used with a method for assigning a unique identifier. So let's say a watermark or a fingerprint. So that image, which can then prevent identification of this image as real. And then finally, we can have a sort of countermeasure that can help remove or flag images with such watermarks if they are shared to spread specifically disinformation, which maybe will be mentioned a bit later. And then finally, just I think another important point is that we need to provide means of interpretability for the tools developed, and that is crucial for their adoption and for humans to trust them somehow. So now I'm going to run you quickly through some of the technologies developed at Fujitsu. Let me see if I can share my screen, hopefully. I'll share here. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Let me see. It's a slideshow. Sorry, is it as a slideshow or?
As a slideshow, it's not maximized at the moment.
Okay. Ah, it's taking time. Sorry. It's almost there. All right. Apologies. Yes. So the technologies in Fujitsu developed to detect and mitigate disinformations. Disinformation is done across modalities and sectors. So we have technologies, general technologies for detection, analysis, and countering, such as a detection of deepfake images or videos. We have social media content fact checking, internal document evidence checking, or cross-modal inconsistency detection. But it's also important to look at sector-specific technologies. So technologies, for example, for the insurance industry, where a lot of images, especially now with sort of generative AI, can be modified and then submitted um, fraudulently to the insurance companies or accounting firms, again with some modification of images mainly. But as a small dive into one of our technologies, we have developed a sort of social media posts fact checker, which aims at linking which works by linking third-party information to online information in order to analyze its authenticity, and where the information is from trusted third parties such as government, news media, and to serve as evidence in the third-party information checking. So for example, so again, it's a combination of information, so detecting some form of tampering of the media analyzed, which can be a single modality, so just an image, but in this instance, images and text, and also analyzing how it correlates with third-party information. So in this instance where it is, well, I'm just going to go to the next one. Yeah, where it is basically an image about some ministers or official figures with some form of text describing who they are. You would have an internal check which would analyze the text, the image, or video in the article, and then verify their integrity. So looking at the text-image relationship, but also at whether the text or the image has been tampered with. And then it will correlate, so collect a list of articles and images from trusted sources, and analyze whether there is a correlation between what text has been written and these articles or images, so this data set. And in this specific demonstration, so we have basically an official from the American government, which is seen in an image with supposedly Prime Minister Kishida from Japan. And the analysis and the text mentions both of these people by name. However, the internal checker, I'm just going to stop here. The internal checker looks at the text image consistency, and the consistency is consistent. The text is consistent. So there is an image of two people who seem to be official in an official meeting. However, the deepfake analysis reveals that the image appears to be altered and therefore may be a deepfake. And then the external check looks at 3 articles related to this image. And in these three articles, you can see the face of the main person in the image. This is consistent. It seems to be Victoria Nuland. However, there have been other images found from trusted sources which describe this meeting not as a meeting between Victoria Nuland and Prime Minister Kishida, but rather Victoria Nuland and Carlos Franca from Brazil. And therefore, there is a judgment which shows that there is a mismatch. So there is both signs of deepfake, so tampering with the images, and there is also external evidence that there has not been a meeting with such a photo taken with the Prime Minister Kishida. And therefore, a judgment, which is that this is fake news effectively. But the judgment is not so direct. So there is a suspicion, so it is suspected that this is misinformation. Here it's misinformation because there is no analysis on whether this is this is made on purpose with the intent of creating disinformation. It could simply be a mistake, and therefore the checker does not directly link to disinformation. So again, this is a multimodal tools which looks at images and text. It does an internal and external check, and it provides some interpretability for the final judgment provided by the tool. Let me go to the next page. This is a cross-modal contradiction detector, which looks specifically at contradiction in articles. And it looks either at contradiction between image and the text related to this image. So, for example, here an image of someone crying, and there will be an analysis of this image. So what does it represent? And then subsequently an image of the subtext, so the text below this image, and the caption, which is related to the article itself. And it will show whether there is some contextual discrepancy. So is the image related to the text, and is that related to the caption for the specific article? Because which is important in the sense that a lot of the time we tend to read the caption, have a brief overlook at an article, and this may create some sort of emotional reaction, but it may not be linked to the actual content that was provided, and where people may not look much further. And then quickly, yeah, you probably see. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm just going to quickly introduce the Frontier Consortium, which Andrea mentioned. So this is a initiative which originated in Japan, where the Japanese government funded something called the K-NADO program, which was focused on developing a platform to counter disinformation. And because this issue is a very global issue, Fujitsu decided to extend this initiative to the world and try to gather participants from around the globe, starting with Europe, but also looking at Asia, India, Singapore, India, and the US, to basically join forces in order to how to say, undertake this task, basically, of combating this real global problem of disinformation, misinformation, by uniting forces between researchers, academic researchers, but also industry researchers and government bodies, which as it is again, a global issue which targets everyone. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope this was clear.